I suppose the most intriguing thing to me about this gospel today is how many of the devil's temptations keep popping up in the news feeds today. Do we choose to feed our hunger by being in league with the devil or not? Do we choose to let ourselves lust after political power no matter what or not? Do we choose to engage in self-destructive behavior because it numbs us against the pain we feel or not? The answer, of course, if you're Jesus or someone following Jesus, is that you must choose to listen to God and seek God only instead of listening to yourself. In other versions of this gospel, it's not the devil, the word devil, but Satan, who is an angel who tests Jesus. And in fact, Satan was an angel. Satan, being an angel, could only do what God asked him to do. And in this case, in the book of Job, that's what happens, because God asks Satan to tempt and test Satan. So that's what Archangel Satan's job is, to test the faith of a person who has been identified as being special and very holy, just to see how far that holiness goes. Now, in today's passage, Jesus is really kind of being given his graduate exam before he starts his ministry. And consider this. It's only after a period of misery or feeling alone in the desert or feeling alone in our own lives that God's greatest revelations will take place for us. Just like in our first story from Genesis, where God has chosen Noah to build an ark to bring righteous people aboard and load 2 of every creature into the ship. We know the story. And then it starts to rain. Left behind are all the people who refuse to heed God's warning, who scoff at Noah. The debauched, the self-centered sea of humanity that had a chance but missed the boat. That was 40 days and 40 nights, just like the 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, but 40 days and 40 nights without sighting land. And we know the story so well that we tell it to our kids. Of course, we never do get around to explaining to kids how a boat full of righteous people let all the other people in the community drown. But getting back to the easier part of the story, the part about the rainbow. The fascinating thing is the story of Noah and the ark and the rainbow is far from the only stories about rainbows in the cultures of the world. In our story, the rainbow was more than just a weather phenomenon. You know a rainbow when you see it. It's because you have to be in a certain spot, and then the raindrops refract the light and spread it, and you see what's really in the light. But in our case, it was God's promise, God's covenant with humanity to never destroy the world again with water. It was sort of up there in the sky as a celestial post-it note to God, to remind him that God has an unbreakable bond with every living creature on earth. We must not forget that the rainbow was not just a pretty thing. It was to remind God that while angered enough by the way humans take God's universe and creations for granted and worship only themselves, there was a promise made. A promise, not just for humanity, but for all living things. In fact, if you look very closely at today's text, and I don't know why we're buzzing, if you look closely at today's text, what God says is really nothing about a pretty bow. In fact, God says, if you read it in the original Hebrew, I have set my battle bow in the sky. as that's the correct translation. God was referring to the wrath, the anger with which the world was destroyed. Anger as a weapon of mass destruction. How often have we seen that recently? Destruction and darkness. But only one thing destroys the dark. It is light. As God regretted destroying his own creation, God transformed that bow. It became the bow of light, the bow of unity of all creation. And as our friend Eli Davis, who's a minister out in Grants Pass, Oregon, said that God couldn't abide with evil, but God still loved his creation. God made the covenant. God broke the battle bow. But then God broke the light into the infinite pieces of the spectrum, and placed it in the clouds. God's rainbow is God's perfect handiwork. I always love rainbows. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever one pops up just for rain, I go out and see it anyway, even if it's at the other end of the house. I just need that. You know, we must remember when we see rainbows that they only happen after storms. That same light that allows you to see at this very moment, I'm looking back there at Pat sitting in the sunshine, or just when you're just looking right now. In reality, every color of the rainbow is in that light. When all the colors come together, you get this pure white light, clear light. And that's what we're used to. But we don't realize the glory that is in just the average moment. When you see all combined colors of the rainbow, as you see plain white light, the point, the very essence of the message of the rainbow is that all of us, excuse me, the point is all of us are necessary as God's creatures to create the light. When it comes to us humans, no one person or group can be excluded from the covenant we have with God. We try, not a single one, but being human beings with a tendency to succumb to evil, we too often look for ways to condemn people who are different from themselves. Do we try to steal away God's rainbow and keep only the colors we agree with, the ones we like? Of course we do. We think we know better than God. Back in the 1970s, when gay people first began to develop a voice, a young artist named Gilbert Baker was asked to design a flag that symbolized the unity of people of all kinds. He created the pride flag that we're familiar with today, and he chose the rainbow. At the time, he commented, "The rainbow is a part of nature, and you have to be in the right place to see it. It's beautiful, all the colors, even the colors you can't see." And that's an interesting point he makes. There are colors you can't see. That really fit us as a people, he said, because we are all the colors. Our sexuality is all the colors. We are all the genders, races, and ages. I like how he acknowledges those extra invisible colors, because very often we can be blind to people who aren't in our own spectrum, so to speak. And it's not gay people who have stolen the rainbow, although there are some evangelical groups right now that are saying just that. It's the darkness of those who would take away the identities of those they won't recognize as one of God's creatures the dark ones that have tried and failed at their attempt to kill the rainbow. I, for one, as I mentioned earlier, have always sought out the rainbow. You know, one of my earliest memories is, everybody has a very early memory. I have one that dates back to, it was before I was 3 years old. And it was, my mother had put up a baby gate to keep me away from the top of these stairs. If you know old Cape Cod houses, you came in the front door and there was a stairway that went all the way up to the bedrooms. So she wanted to make sure I didn't go down that. So she put up the baby gate, fencing me into my own bedroom. And she had laid down one afternoon to take a nap. And that was the point. I was looking through the baby gate and I saw a rainbow on the wall above her head in the bedroom. And I knew I had to get to her and the rainbow. That rainbow came from a shade pull that was a prism on the wall. So every afternoon it would show up. And I just knew I had to get to it. But there was that gate. And so there's something that you remember is pain as a baby, as a child. And I could remember the pain of scraping my little torso underneath the baby gate and wiggle my way through, and then run, fortunately, into the bedroom where she scooped me up and kept me from going down the stairs. And for many afternoons, I'd look for the rainbow and the nap, and I'd get upset when it was cloudy because we didn't get a rainbow. But, you know, the rainbow has occupied a special place in the hearts of many cultures, and not just Judeo-Christians like ourselves. A rainbow is often a part of many cultures' myths. For many cultures, the rainbow leads people to God, which I think is very cool. You know, some tribes of North American Indians call the rainbow the pathway of souls. In Japan, some refer to it as the floating bridge of heaven. Isn't that lovely? Legends in the Austrian Alps say righteous souls go to heaven via the rainbow. Where I come from in central New York, the indigenous Iroquois tribes believed the sky was a land of its own, a whole land up there of its own, a lush and beautiful terrain where animals and man thrived. They viewed the sun and the moon as man and wife, a married couple who descended to the earth in a little slit in the sky. And the same people believed in a thunder god who was named Heng. And Heng grew angry at the sun because he believed the sun was somehow mistreating his beautiful moon bride. So Heng cast a giant black cloud across the shining face of the sun. But the heat from the sun melted the cloud, resulting in a big, beautiful rainbow. When the animals saw the glorious rainbow in all its colors, they thought it was a bridge to the land and the sky. And Iroquois legends claim the gods then outlined the animals' bodies and stars, and some of our constellations are still known for those animal shapes. Rainbows help shape the stories of many faiths as well. In Hindu mythology, the rainbow is said to be the bow of the god Indra, and she uses it to bring harmony and balance back to the world. Boy, could we use that right now. In Buddhism, there is a state of elevated consciousness in which the physical body becomes one with the elements, air, earth, fire. And it's called the rainbow body. At death, the person transforms into the rainbow body. In China, since rainbows occur at the intersection of rain and sun, they are also seen as a symbol of the union between male and female energy, or as we know it, yin and yang. In our own culture, from the Hebrew Bible, we find our God who is written large across the sky, a divine effort to restore balance between God and man. The rainbow is a divine reminder, that divine post-it note I talked about, reminding God to forgive us in our darkness. And it seems to have been put to test an awful lot these last few weeks. You know, Lord, for the hatred we saw this week in Kansas City, remember the rainbow. For the creation of new, more dangerous weapons on the edge of space, Lord, please remember the rainbow. For our refusal to come together to help the refugee, the homeless, and those of different political parties, Lord, please remember the rainbow. For our arrogance and refusal to accept responsibility for our mistakes, Lord, in your mercy, remember the rainbow and forgive us. Lord, engrave on our hearts the 7 colors of your rainbow, along with the portion of the spectrum of caring that they represent. Red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sun, green for nature, blue for serenity, indigo for harmony, and violet for your spirit. Help us, dear God, to follow the rainbow's path to better unity, better stewardship of your beautiful world, and better attention to the wisdom of Jesus and your will. Amen. I wish you rainbows. I wish you the ability after this dark clouds pass to see the light. I have to say that Heidi's remark about getting the Siamese cat reminds me of a story about when our pets pass away and go to heaven, and God's sitting on the throne, and a dog comes up, and he says, well, you have been a good dog. What do you have to say to yourself? He said, I'm just so thankful. I'm just so thankful. He says, well, come right in. You're perfect material for heaven. And shortly after that, a couple of dogs, a cat saunters up. And God's on his throne. And he says, well, Mr. Cat, what do you have to say for yourself? He said, you're sitting in my seat. Which is pretty close to the truth. So on that bright note, I'd like to send you forth. Send you forth to families celebrating birthdays, to exotic places to see other families, or just to the quiet and peace of your own home to see the rainbow, that you can be so thankful for all the colors in your life. May God bless you and keep you all this week. May God keep your spirits up and your hopes alive as we go forth to bring peace and unity to the world. Amen.